Thanks for tuning in, Guardians. For many years, I've tried to turn my niche channel into a more wide, mass appealing channel by teaching you the world of speed killing. And that's what I'm going to do in today's video, is stick by my guns. And it doesn't matter if you're new to the game or a veteran who maybe never got introduced into speed killing. I'm going to show you the world behind it, the mentality of thinking, break down 3 different builds, also break down the stats you're putting on your build to give you god level tiers and god level perk sets that'll keep you alive and crushing. So hit subscribe, become beast, and welcome to the ultimate build guide. Over the past few weeks, I've read a lot of comments where people say they don't use their rockets for ad clear, and I think that's entirely insane that you would waste your rocket just for boss DPS when it offers you some of the fastest ad clear strategies in this game. Here's one for an example. Listen for the Cabal drop in the Insight Terminus. As soon as that door lights up, fire away rocket number 1, turn around, throw your grenade at door number 2, the far door number 3, throw your second rocket, and then diagonally to the far end, throw your last rocket, and you clear out this entire area of ads in 10 seconds. And it's all because of a fast reloading rocket launcher with max blast, 1 grenade, and it's the fastest ad clear strategy in the Insight Terminus for this area. And these are the kind of skills that I want to show you in today's video. Let's talk about the rocket that I recommend go with the 3 builds I'm going to talk about later, and that is Code Duello with Unrelenting. Unrelenting basically grants you better already when you kill 3 more ads or 1 yellow bar. It immediately starts your health regen, and if you pair it with Impulse Amplifier and Alloy Casing, that's going to give you fill prep reload on the move without needing to know the fill prep on the move mechanic that I showed you in rocket video number 1 and 2 of this season. And Quick Launch, which is the highest handling, giving us the fastest action with this rocket, with the Blast Radius Masterwork, which gives us max blast. Here's a quick example of a CQC accidental when you blow a rocket up too close to your body, and we're also going to be talking about self-inflicting damage later and why it's actually okay in some combat scenarios. Here's another example of why I meant it's like better already. You just shoot it at ads and pretend it's better already, you shoot it at the ground and it starts healing you pretty much. And that's what you do, you just clear ads, get your health back, and later when we combine this rocket with these 3 builds, it's the best balance of destruction and survivability in game. This is what max blast rockets are meant for. You see a group of ads, you throw it at a group of ads, and voila, everybody dies. You'll be killing so much if you follow these tactics today that you're going to have situations like this where you're getting teabagged because nobody wants to revive you because you don't allow them to kill anything. You're going to be hurting egos all day in Strike Playlist. Now let's go over some stats and break it down and how you can recognize all types of God roll stats. This is actually a pro tip, believe me, because a lot of people don't know this. These are the stats that I recommend for all the builds today, even if you're on a Hunter or a Titan, and I'm going to break them down. Let's start it off with mobility. I always go 7+ mobility on every one of my builds nowadays. There were a few seasons back where I just couldn't afford it, but then I figured out how you can get 4 levels of 7+ stats with God tier armor that's one of the rarest drops in the game. Practice precision maneuverability. I know from being one of the top 1 of 25 players in speed killing in this game that this is one of the most crucial skills to keep you up to pace with other players who are also competing against you and being the beast on your team. And that's what I want to talk to you about, mobility plus launch pads. Launch pads, if you watched any of my earlier content before really anybody knew who I was, I talked about launch pads, and they're everywhere in the entire game, and Bungie puts them there strategically a lot of the time. You just have to know how to identify them and realize what objects you can boost off of for a speed boost. Mobility is way more than just getting you up to higher ledges, though that is one of the benefits. It also helps you strafing left to right, your fall speeds, your forward and backwards movement. It allows you to pull off more actions while you're in the air, and if you didn't know about lightweight weapons, it grants a +2 mobility when you're going forwards and backwards, but only a +1 when strafing sideways or falling left to right. And though a lot of people believe it, it actually gives you 0 height advantages, and I've done a ton of testing on this in past videos. But back to finding these launch pads. You're going to see one here in just a second, and this is about when you're racing against 2 other players on your team and you're trying to gain any little advantage you can to stay ahead, to get to the ads, to slay the ads faster. And you can see how I boosted off there to make the jump all the way, and also using agile weapons. This is a really crucial tip as well, not high DPS weapons, just enough to give you plenty of damage and still have plenty of agility so I can keep running one direction, turn around and do a fadeaway shot and still have enough damage to kill it and accuracy while on the move. Same with this fusion shot. I staggered all of them, then take them out while I'm still on the run, and then again with a high mobility and a fusion rifle go hand in hand together. I can keep boosting, charging, and shooting and traverse more ground while dodging around shots, and also the perks on my armor kicking in that we're going to go over later. And as I've said a million times in the past, always fast stagger weapons and fast reload over high impact weapons with slow reload. You can see I get that stagger, also reactive pulse goes off, and before he can get out of that staggered state, I'm able to do more seconds of damage while he's in that state, and then again, fast reloading with frenzy damage, enough to put him into a finished state, take him out, get the overshield and the health back. Earlier I talked about self-inflicting damage. I've got to be really strategic about where I shoot this rocket off. So I shoot it at the far ledge, enough to kill them, but it's also going to damage myself. This is a tactic in itself because sometimes you're in situations like this, where you know an ad can kill you fast, but you also know that you need to kill them faster, so it's okay to shoot a rocket to also do damage to yourself if you know it's enough to take the ads out as well. If you stay alert, Bungie puts a lot of objects like this platform in the game strategically for situations just like this. The sniper stops shooting me when I cover myself up with that platform enough to get the kill with the air shot as I fall down. Now I'm looking for that launch pad to angle myself to launch my body over to the boss area. You can see that I found it. It's going to launch me quick over to the other side of this rock. Then I'm going to boost again on the opposite side of that rock. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Hang time equals more actions. Watch how I'm able to grab the orb, jump in the air, throw it, hit the boss, and still have enough hang time to get an upward angle to throw that grenade at a perfect spot, and then I'm going to shoot the rocket, have fast enough reload and height to then land on that top platform, to then jump again to fire another rocket off to get total ad control. It's not that I always have rockets, I always know where to save my rockets to give me the most strategic advantage. Right here, Unrelenting kicks in, gives me all of my health back, and then I kill these two ads, makes a cell, and I can heal myself off of this, or kill any stragglers that are around to prepare for the second boss phase. Now let's go back to the Insight Terminus, the second wave. Throw a grenade here, now I'm looking for that launch pad to boost to the middle of the area. Shoot the rocket off, launch pad, reload off, get me in a perfect spot to take these two phalanxes out, that I have my super to take care of the remainder ads. I could use the original strat that I showed you earlier in the video, but I'm showing you a different perspective. I can also offer long range support with rocket launchers with agility like this shot right here. This is how I can synergize high mobility with a high handling rocket. The mobility sets me up to where I can jump way above the stair set. The time to aim speed that I get off high handling rockets lets me aim and pull the trigger right away, whereas low handling rockets such as Salvo, Shining Sphere, or Bad Omens lose those windows of opportunity where you only get milliseconds to pull strategies like that off. And in speed killing, you need those type of strategies to be able to claim more kills and stay alive and slay faster and be in any type of situation to take the kill. This is why I choose the loadouts that I do. Even though that Guardian was right by the ads, I was still able to fast forward myself and still claim the kills before he even got a shot off. No limitation. The better you get at boosting and using launch pads, the better you'll get at doing tricks like this. So if you're against another speed killer who also has some skill set, you always have a backup plan because you know if they're into speed killing, they're going to be trying to do similar or the same strategies that you're trying to pull off. I used to play with somebody that I taught a long time ago, and eventually they got to where they would just copy my same strategies. And of course, when they got on a team of randoms, they would be slaying all over the randoms, but then they got on a team with me and they couldn't understand how I was outslaying them so much. And it's all because of the Dunning-Kruger effect, if you don't know what that is. You give somebody a little bit of knowledge and they think that they're an expert all of a sudden. But if you don't put the time in, you're not going to gain this insight or skill set. I can show you the way, but I can't give you the experience and the insight over 6 years of slaying. And to this day, I've never been outslayed by another Guardian, and I was also one of 10 top 10 Gambit Reapers whenever Gambit came out. And I've been asking for so many years to please bring back the Nightfall Score League again because it was so much fun and what got me addicted to Destiny, and I still play it the same way that I played it back then, where it's all about building out for speed, precision, and loadouts with a great balance of ad clear and boss and champ control. But anyways, let's get back on topic because I know I'm rambling. Let's get on to the recovery stat now. If you're new to the game or you never knew how important your recovery is is actually your resilience in PvE combat, because the more you get health back, the longer you can stay in combat, and every time you get chipped away with any type of damage, that counter of how fast your recovery comes back starts all over again. So when you're playing up close and aggressive and you're not getting the health back, you're slowly pushed out of combat as your health gets lower and lower until you finally have to stop for a second, let it come back, and then jump back into combat. And of course, while you're out of combat, your other teammate who has a great build on with high recovery is slaying all the ads that you could have had yourself. But if you get your shield busted and you can dodge long enough to get your health back, it allows you to stay in combat when you mix in skilled maneuverability with your recovery. Not counting the resist mods that also give you the 25 or 40% resistance that we'll talk about a little bit when we get to the actual build. This build is subclass neutral, and it's also guardian neutral. You can use it with whatever guardian. If you're using a Titan and a Hunter, I'll go over their exotics later, but as far as the build, it's still the same. If you're curious about the charge rate differences when you're using Eye of Another World on Stasis subclass, mixed with the Dustfill Grenade with Endurance Fragment and 1 Impact Induction, Tier 6 to Tier 10, I'll go ahead and give you those charge rates. So that's 1 Dustfill with Durance, meaning it lasts longer, and then doing 1 Impact Induction, it's going to be a 21-second grenade at Tier 6, which is still a pretty fast grenade charge. Tier 7 is a 19-second grenade, Tier 8 is a 17.5-second grenade, Tier 10, 15.5-second grenade. And then to show you a side-by-side comparison of Tier 6 to Tier 10, just to show you in real time what it would look like in combat. It's only a 5.5-second difference, but in combat when you're surrounded by a ton of adds, a 5.5-second difference in some cases can seem like an eternity, especially if you're going solo against a champion. I'm using a Tier 9 on this build, which is a 16.3-second charge versus a 15.5. So the reason I didn't go with the Tier 10 is because of the balance that I wanted to have on this build. If I chose a Tier 10, that means that I'd have to choose a Tier 8 on Stasis for recovery, or a Tier 7 without Stasis, because one of the Stasis fragments I'm getting is giving me a plus 10. So it's all in the balance of balancing your stats out. Adding to one location can take away from another, so it's all about that overall balance, and going from 15.5 to 16.3 seconds is not that much combat time at all. It also allows me to have a 6.5-second recovery time from no health to full health, and also a Tier 5 melee, which grants me a 1-minute melee from 1 minute and 16 because of Eye of Another World granting 3 extra tiers. And don't forget, the higher my recovery, the faster my Rift recharges, on top of the Eye of Another World recharge, which is a really fast combat time, especially in grandmasters such as the Warden of Nothing, when you need your Rift back between every flame wall phase. And don't forget, when you're using other subclasses such as Mid-Tree Arc with Ionic Traces, or Benevolent Dawn with the Solar subclass tree, you get even faster recharge rates from that, and that's what we're going to get into next, is the subclasses I recommend, and the Stasis fragments and aspects that I recommend. So obviously you're going to want to use either Solar or Arc this season because of the artifact mods, allowing you to cover 2 champions with a weapon and with your class item and still rock a special weapon. So if you're going Solar, I recommend Mid-Tree to give you those fast recharge rates by healing your team. Or if you're using any kind of Arc subclass, obviously Mid-Tree Arc because of the more damage super. You also get Ionic Traces, which gets hella recharge rates with your Eye of Another World, and Ball Lightning Melee to give you even more reach that also synergizes with the other perks we're going to be talking about on the build. When it comes to your Stasis subclass, using the Titan and a Hunter, I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about which aspects or fragments you should use, and I know that you don't get to hold 4 slots with Titan or Hunter, unfortunately. If you choose any of these 4, you really just can't go wrong. I recommend Head Drawn being a stable piece for one of them. That 30% damage is really clutch, and also the Dustfill Grenade because of the control that it gives you on adds and for champion control. Now when it comes to your first aspect for the Warlock, Ice Flare Bolts because of 2 reasons. It grants 2 slots for fragments, and the second reason is because of the Seekers freezing multiple targets, which grants you overall more control and also keeps Head Drawn proccing over and over again. And when it comes to GM content, this is a great benefit to have on a team or for solo gameplay. Second, it's going to be Frost Pulse. And it's also for the same reason. It grants you 2 fragment slots, which lets you get more synergy on your builds, and it's always a clutch thing when you have a Phalanx that can just one-hit you into a wall, and it's also going to synergize with all of the build. I don't know how many times I've been saved in solo gameplay because of Frost Pulse. And it's not that I dislike any of the new aspects you can get, it's just they don't grant enough synergy, so getting 4 fragments off of the OG aspects is way more beneficial. Now moving on to the fragments. Head Drawn should just be a staple piece. It grants that 30%, which is great in Grandmaster content or anything under light. Also, Whisper of Durance is another staple piece going with Dustfill Grenades. I can control champions or any group of adds, especially in harder tier content, where everything on your build 100% matters. I know Bleakwatcher is really fun to use because you can kind of just have it set aside to keep proccing Head Drawn damage also, but again, it doesn't allow 4 fragments, so it goes back to the balance of it all. The gameplay footage you're seeing right here is a negative 25 light master doing grandmaster practice. So every time I freeze a target, it seeks the ground and goes to freeze other targets. I've also got the reactive pulse going off, then again with the Durance Grenade, freezing, let it travel on the floor to freeze other targets. So it allows this type of control against the hardest adds the game has to offer. Now moving on to the next fragment, which builds on top of that, Whisper of Chains. This is one melee resist mod, but you can see that I'm getting 25% resistance, but chains grants 20% damage resistance. That was gameplay footage from the previous season, but just using it to give you an example of what it would be allowing in combat. And then to go with that fragment, to balance it all out, I have Whisper of Torment, which means every time I take damage, I get grenade recharge ability back to go with Durance, to go with head-drawn damage, to go with my 2 aspects, to then go with my tier 9 grenade, my tier 9 recovery. I have mobility for great movement. I also have the fast recharging melee, so all of this revolves in a complete circle. I'm getting damage, I'm getting resistance, I'm getting grenade charge from the damage, I have Durance to go back for freezing more targets, I've got the head-drawn damage, I'm dropping Rift to freeze targets, getting more resistance, and then I've also got the Seekers that keeps traveling on the ground to keep freezing more and more targets, so it's a revolving cycle. And what's great about it all is I don't have to do anything at all except for play how I normally would play, and then it automatically just works for me. Now let's get into the main reason you came here, the build itself. When it comes to the Hunter, use whatever exotic you see fit based on your style of gameplay. If you're using the Titan, I highly recommend Heart of Inmost Light or Hollow Fire Heart if you're choosing the Solar subclass. Don't go with the Phoenix Cradle option. Those sunspots don't work nearly as well in high tier content, but Hollow Fire Heart just involves you existing in combat, and don't pop your super unless you absolutely have to, because the recharge rates outweigh what the super offers when you're using Hollow Fire. Now moving on, we already know we're using Eye of Another World. I'm also using dual rocket ammo finders. I've found the game pretty much feeds me regularly with special ammo, and I always need rocket launchers to gain more ad control and set me up for those big bang moments when I need rockets more than I need special ammo. And I normally rock fusion rifles, and when I use a fusion, it's either a field prep Timeline's Vertex where I get 20-30 rounds, or it might be Telesto with the Deep Pockets Catalyst. So I always choose my loadouts according to my build that I'm using to make sure that I have plenty of ammo, such as the Field Prep Timeline Vertex option. Your loadout is just as important as your armor build. So if you try this build on and you're not able to keep special ammo, it might be because of the perks you're using on your special weapon, or if you're using a fusion rifle, the perks you're using on the fusion. So use something like Lead from Gold or Field Prep, that way you always stay stacked and you don't have to waste an ammo finder towards special, you can put it all towards your rockets, or whatever heavy weapon you decide to use. The build that I'm using is completed by the unrelenting Code Duello rocket that I'm using. It's a part of the entire loadout. Though it's not a requirement, it makes the build play much better by having those health recover options to go with the other perks you're going to see on this build. And how I have all the perks set up on this armor is intentional the way that it is because of how much energy it costs and how many things I need on each specific armor piece to complete the entire build. So for example, I'm using Global Reach on the helmet because it only costs 1 energy, and it unlocks the ability to where I can use 2 rocket ammo finders and the mod that I need to build my stats back up. And I'm also using Global Reach because this is the cell version and I need all the outreach that I can get to create more cells and damage more ads. This next tip that I'm going to give you is probably one of the most crucial ones in today's video. Those of you who are a part of my Discord probably remember a few seasons back when I said to hang on to oddly high spiked armor stats that might seem like trash to the naked eye when you first glance at it, but when you combine it with typical god rolled armor pieces such as the one you're seeing right here, this is normally the most sought after type of armor rolls you want to get. However, even rolls like this on all 5 of your pieces can't achieve a 7 mobility, recovery, discipline, and strength simultaneously. You have to find these golden nugget armor pieces that only drop once every around 2 seasons that are actually statted like this. And I've been paying attention to this for a really long time, and it takes a bit of insight building to actually recognize that these are hidden treasures in the game when you combine them with the typical god rolled statted armor, which is high in mobility, recovery, strength, and discipline. I've been keeping every piece that I get like this, and I get a lot of engrams because I kill a lot of ads, which increases the drop rate of my engrams. And I've only gotten these pieces once around every 2 seasons. And I believe the reason they're so rare because they're the gatekeeper to achieving 7 mobility, recovery, discipline, and strength simultaneously, without having to waste your build's potential by using powerful friends and other mods or subclasses that help you build stats back up. You can rely on just the armor itself and save that room for more beast build options. So keep your eyes peeled and don't delete every odd piece you get like this, because it might be the make or break piece to achieving your god tier stats for your armor builds. But let's get back to the build. So we know Eye of Another World, we're using dual ammo finders and Global Reach. Now moving on to the arm piece, which is actually the golden nugget stat piece I was just talking about. Now use your anti-barrier mod or whatever you're unstoppable for this, or if you're doing patrol or whatever, use a submachine gun loader. I'm also using Fire Team Medic and Impact Induction, which changes depending on the tier that you're on, but it's safe to say it grants around 8 seconds off your grenade recharge. I'm using Impact Induction because the two subclasses I'm going to be maining this season, Arc Mid-Tree and Stasis, both have ranged melees, which is an easy proc in grandmaster activities to help get my grenade back even faster, because I'm also going to be using an overload grenade option on my class item. I'm also using the Fire Team Medic option, which in this combat scenario absolutely crushes with the Code Duello with the Unrelenting on it as well. You can see I just got health back from the Fire Team Medic, then I got my health back again off of Code Duello's Unrelenting perk, and then I get my health recovered back again off of another Fire Team Medic mixed with the Rocket Cell Explosion to decimate the champion. And this also combines a support role because I'm also healing my team and giving them 70% health back every time I pop one of those cells. Here's another situation of that, when I throw the rocket, pop my super, and then I get my shield busted, but there it is, Code Duello's Unrelenting perk, working this better already to grant health back, and then easy to pop cells with Telesto, one of the greatest cell popping weapons in game. And then, as I just said, an easy proc with Impact Induction because we have the ranged melee, getting our grenades back even faster with Ionic Traces. Moving on to the chest piece, you can see that I'm using Reactive Pulse, but I'm not actually using it for the Reactive Pulse. I'm using it for the Bulwark Finisher, because I'm not actually using a Charge of Light perk to get me Charge of Light on this entire build, unless I have a teammate that's using Powerful Friends. So I'm only using it to go with my class item mod, because I'm also using Healthy Finisher. So it's synergizing with Bulwark Finisher and Healthy Finisher, and I'm also using one Arc Resistance mod because I have to use it to activate the Bulwark Finisher, but it's good because this season there's a lot of arc shooting enemies like Cabal with their slug cannons and some of the anti-barriers and tons of other ads that shoot arc this season, such as Boomers and Wizards, which are some of the hardest hitting ads in game. And as I mentioned earlier, the perks are on the specific armor pieces on purpose, such as the arm piece. I had to make sure it was solar to get Impact Induction and to also get Fire Team Medic. For my chest piece, I chose it to be the Reactive Pulse one because I could use the energy. I could still use an Arc Resistance because of the type ads there are this season, and I couldn't use it on my leg piece or my class item because I needed my leg piece and my class item to be a solar piece because of Wrath of Rasputin, which we're going to move on to the next perk on the legs. Ever since swapping to PS5, and take a moment to shout out to Kevin Engler, B Squad member, who gave that huge donation to be able to fund that and make this video possible for you today in this high quality. But ever since swapping to PS5, I stopped using traction and I want the more ammo drops for my rockets, so I'm using 2 rocket scavengers. The field of view allows me to go without traction. I don't really miss it all that much. I'd much rather have the ammo because without ammo, that's when the fun stops. And because I'm using the solar rocket, that's how I'm able to make the cells using the Wrath of Rasputin. Now moving on to the class item, which again is made this way on purpose for a solar affinity so I can use Rage of the Warmind and still afford 5 energy to go with Healthy Finisher costing 1 energy to again synergize with the Bulwark Finisher. But Wrath of Rasputin and Rage of the Warmind is what keeps the cell production coming. Every around 5 to 6 ads you kill with solar damage creates a cell. So if you blow a cell up and kill about 5 to 6 ads, it's going to make another cell. And you can keep this going and keep healing yourself because of Fire Team Medic and your entire team on top of that. So Wrath of Rasputin with Rage of the Warmind, with Fire Team Medic, and with Global Reach to give you more range to reach more ads. And then again, back to the Stasis subclass, we drop that, we freeze ads, we get resistance, we keep all our abilities coming, and we take damage, and this whole build revolves around each other. Because of those 4 awesome cell mods, the build is basically good enough with just that, so I can have overkill and more beast aspects in combat by synergizing the Healthy Finisher with the Bulwark Finisher and not even have to worry about having a Charged Light perk to use Reactive Pulse. I'm not even worried about the Reactive Pulse. I'm just using it for that overshield so that when I do the finisher, I pretty much get an oh shit handle in combat and they don't touch my health meter at all. They touch the blue shield first, and sometimes even though you have Healthy Finisher on, if you're low on health, you can still die in the Healthy Finisher before it actually gives your health back. But Bulwark automatically puts that blue shield right away, so no matter what the situation is, I can grab onto a target, get the blue overshield on top of that with my full health recover underneath that, so that when I'm finished with the finisher, I can walk away from the combat scene with full health and reset the entire scenario or have a chance to get away. I hope the footage is demonstrating just how amazing it is, because when you put this all together and you're in the middle of combat and you have the unrelenting rocket launcher mixed with the overshield and your healthy finisher mixed with making cells off Rage of the Warmind and healing yourself off those cells using Fireteam Medic mixed with the impact induction mixed with all your awesome subclass perks such as Ionic Traces, or if your Stasis subclass taking damage and getting resistance, or taking damage and getting your grenade recharge back, or freezing targets and getting head drawn damage, mixed with your high mobility, high recovery, high discipline, and high strength, mixed with the Eye of Another World helmet, it not only gives you crushing abilities in combat, it gives you the most survival that you can have and the greatest combat balance, because you have the best of both worlds of slaying and staying alive and support role, and you don't have to go out of your way to make this build work. It naturally just happens as you play aggro in combat. You always have a tool at your disposal to either heal you, or to either crush adds with cells, or to heal your entire team by blowing up a cell. You have all that reach because of global reach, and it's nice to know that when you're in the most bullshit moments of combat, you have a tool waiting on you so you can grab onto that ad, get that bulwark, get that health underneath, and just hit the reset button to start the whole scene all over again, or get the fuck out of Dodge. And if it's not enough already, you still have 2 energy left for Resonant Siphon, Surge Detonators, or Inferno Whip, so you can cover an anti-barrier primary like a scout rifle and take on another style of champion using your class item, making you a total army of 1. Now say that you're burnt out on cells and you want to do the non-cell versions. They're just as good and requires the same armor and stuff you already had on. Simply just go to your helmet and put on Empowered Finish for the first option. This way you have 2 Charged with Light options, because one is Empowered Finish, so every time you do the Bulwark and Healthy Finisher, you're charged with light. And since it's easy to make orbs in combat, you can also do Taking Charge. This will also work with the Reactive Pulse, so now you have something to actually activate it, but we're not really too worried about Reactive Pulse more than we are Protective Light, because that's really what's going to save you. Reactive Pulse can create a staggering effect in combat. It can kind of give you a chance to get away, but Protective Light is really what this build's mainly focused on, and gonna grant you the most uptime. You can also still use Wrath of Rasputin, but you actually have 4 leftover energy in this build, so you can still create cells with Wrath, or you can choose a high energy fire option if you're using the solar or the arc mid-tree option. I don't recommend it with Stasis because head drawn and high energy fire don't stack, so it'll cancel each other out and end up wasting your charge with light. But I'll leave that up to you what you want to spend the last 4 energy on for your class item. You won't be making as much cells because you won't have rage, but you still have the cell option, which can do as much damage as a rocket explosion before the 30% damage buff. And now we're going to go over the third and final option that I recommend for this season, going back to your class item. So this time put Empowered Finisher on your class item piece, and you're still going to use the Taking Charge option on your arm piece, but on your helmet, use a Void stacks on stacks, so every time you do a finisher or you pick up an orb, you're charged with light times 2. This is going to drop your recovery if you're on a Warlock by 10, so it's going to leave you at an 8 recovery on Stasis, or 7 recovery if you're on Solar or Arc subclass, which is still the 7 or above law that I follow, which is still great in run and gun combat or high tier combat. Every time you do a finisher or around adds, it's going to proc Reactive Pulse to stagger the adds around, and again, give you more time to get away, give you full health recovery and the overshield, and it's also going to proc Protective Light. Here's another situation to this, going back to Warden of Nothing. We hit that finisher on the overload, and then we proc Reactive Pulse to kind of stagger and damage some adds backwards, and then we get damaged by the Incinerator, which is then going to proc us with the Protective Light, because we had a ×2 charge with light because of stacks on stacks. Every time we pick up an orb, or every time we do the finisher, that's going to happen. Here's a cool tip: when you're doing the Warden of Nothing and you first enter the area, you can climb up that pipe and jump on top of that platform and rain down rockets when you're coming down, and you can actually sit up there in the Grandmaster version and clear every ad from that location. But again, going back to the Unrelenting Rocket, giving our health back when we kill a yellow bar or when we kill 3 adds, is if we have a better already on a rocket launcher to proc at our will as we're slaying away. Here's one final tip, just kind of a maybe a useful Sparrow tip that I recently figured out. If you're using a Sparrow that your Guardian gets on like they're getting on a motorcycle, you actually can get off of your Sparrow a lot quicker. This might be useful for some people. Sometimes I just want to boost my Sparrow forward and hop off. But another tip is, when you use the ones that's like you're getting on a motorcycle, you don't get as much air time when you're driving and then jumping off of it. He actually will just kind of hop off to the side. But if you use traditional Sparrows that are, the normal, like, jet ski looking ones, they actually get more vertical leap off when you jump off. But it takes you longer to jump off of it once you start riding on it. Just a quick tip, I thought that was kind of useful in a way. You can see that I can get off the Sparrow a lot faster, but then when I was on the other one, about a second later, I was able to hop off after I jumped on it. But anyways, just a quick little whatever tip with that. Guardians, I told you in the community tab, those of you within 20 kills would get posted and shouted out in my next video. And we've had almost 200 different games, and so far there's been no victors. But if you care to join, I know this puts a huge target on my back. I'll be joining the Hero Nightfall playlist at random times every day all throughout the week. Hopefully today's video gave you a lot of tips you can start practicing with. This is just something to add some excitement to the game right now and have something to look forward to if you ever do get match made with me. But like I said, if you get within 20 kills or beat me, I will post you and shout out your beastness in my videos. But it has been cool talking to a lot of you that I have ran with. I got a ton of messages and met a lot of you cool subscribers, so I really appreciate the feedback you all give me. And I'm glad these videos are helping all of you out. Again, if you want to support the channel to help create more content, paypal.me/Rustopholis is a great way to do that. Any little bit helps. Also, you can shop at my new merch at teespring.com/D2Nights and a ton of other links. The actual merch you see in those pictures isn't actually my merch anymore. That's the older versions. I kind of need to update that. But anyways, Guardians, again, it's been my pleasure. Have fun beasting out there, and I'll see you all on the next video next time.
Expect